jump right into it. Where we had started off and already kind of teased already is coaching carousel. So finally, after a very long-awaited process, we finally got the news that Lane Kiffin is leaving Ole Miss to go to LSU. The process for all of this sucked. I absolutely hated it. Do you want to get into that, Matt?
Yeah, I think for 40 days, everybody was talking about Lane Kiffin, and nobody would want that more than Lane Kiffin. And
Yeah.
I, I think he just completely drug his foot on this entire thing. I think there was opportunities at every turn for him to make his decision. I am not gonna sit here and argue that he should stay at Ole Miss and he should pass
No.
on LSU in Florida. I'm not going to make that because that is his decision and that's a fine decision because I think there's a world where you can believe that you can compete for playoffs with the transfer portal the way he's done at Ole Miss, but to compete for titles, you need a high school recruiting base. You need that overwhelming amount of talent in your area. And in Oxford, you're just never going to get that. Even if you have an athletic director like Keith Carter, who is pretty pro NIL. Like I learned this is that they, over the past few years, they have stunted like a new stadium being built to like fund NIL to fund players. So again, like this is as generous as it's been for Lane Kiffin. But for Lane at every turn, it felt like to drag his feet, to go at a reporter at the Egg Bowl, to not make a decision at the Egg Bowl, and then not make a decision when he's told on Saturday, and then on Sunday, everybody knows, well, he's going to LSU, but he's also holding up the entire offensive staff to like if you want a spot, you better get on that plane.
Yeah.
So Charlie Weiss Jr. goes on that plane, the offensive coordinator, and then it's learned today that he's able to stay at Ole Miss to call plays, and Lane Kiffin comes out and tries to make it like a I'm doing the gracious thing of letting him call plays. Just overall a pretty scummy end to a place that
Yes.
gave you a second chance. And you think about all of the Lane Kiffin exits over the years. The man was fired on a tarmac from his dream job. Like it's this has never been it's never been clean for Lane Kiffin, and
No.
I said I'm just glad it's over. Um, I think he could do great things at LSU. He could also in 3 years not have a job. Like I think
Yeah.
that is you are walking, and now this is going to me shift into you talk about Lane Kiffin, and then we could talk about the LSU landscape walking into it.
Well, my whole thought on Lane Kiffin is this LSU landscape of it all. Again, he has some pretty gnarly endings, considering everything that even happened at Tennessee, which will be fun because he plays a road game at Tennessee and a road game at Oxford. So like that is going to be really fun. But really, I think my overall like takeaway is there were reports like saying that like already the governor or athletic director or that whole situation in its own right with LSU had came out and said that like they're going to give him $20 million a year to allocate towards NIL, which is
I,
ridiculous. And he's going to expose college football, right? Like he's just going to build like the Avengers with all this money and reach into the portal already and say, hey, I know you're not in the portal. If you enter the portal and you come to LSU, I'll give you $2-3 million a year this year. And he's just going to spend so much money on that, which is going to be a fun flip side of everything that happened in the Bryce Underwood saga. But I digress. Like it's gonna be a gnarly couple years there with LSU, and I think it's gonna cause a lot of people to speak out already more than what we have in terms of NIL and there needing to be regulations with it all because I think it's going to get ridiculous down there in Baton Rouge. But LSU landscape for you.
you if whoever took this job, this is why I was pretty pro like let's do it the right way, and we'll talk about Florida, who
Yes.
I am
Love it.
truly in love with the way that they've been running the show in Gainesville. With LSU, you are telling a former like national championship level coach in Brian Kelly to go away for $50 million because the guy can't recruit. The guy's an a-hole. The guy can't,
Hmm.
the relationship building part of Brian Kelly in the South just never worked, and that's what it is. And now you're signing on Kiffin for 7 years, $90 million. You're allocating every fund you possibly can to NIL. This is the first time since the 2000 that they haven't won a national championship in the last 5 years.
Hmm.
Like, you are walking into as antsy and as aggressive of a fan base that you possibly can with Kiffin. And people have pointed this out. I'm not the first to do it. The Lane Kiffin trophy case is pretty bare. There's a few Egg Bowls in there, but that's it. And so there's no SEC West titles. There's no, Pac-12 back in the day titles with USC. It's a pretty bare cupboard for him, and they're paying him now like he is one of the five coaches, which maybe he is, and maybe getting this right. I continue to come back to, like, if you get the coach right, you get the funds right, you can win a championship. And at certain spots in the country, you have the recruiting base and recruiting home to high school recruit a national championship level team, and LSU can. So again, I'm eager to see how this ends up because it's never ended up well with Lane Kiffin, and I'll be on the record and say I don't think it's going to work out in a place that feels so much more like there's so much more animosity than any place he's walked into. He was able to walk into Ole Miss and kind of be like, I'll put it this way. You win 9 games at Ole Miss, you can be treated like a god and get a statue. You
Oh
win
yeah.
9 games at LSU, your head is on a stake. Like, that is just the result of expectations, and it's the expectations of these places. I'm I'm just intrigued to see how this goes because if this say this would were to crash and burn, compared to Texas. Texas spends that money. Like, Texas spends in the 20-ish million, and part of that is because you have to pay a pretty penny to Arch Manning, but say they have a season and you don't win a Clemson game right off the bat, and you're kind of starting out behind the eight ball. You lose a weird SEC game along the way, much like the Florida game for Texas. Like, what happens if this team is 4-2 with a 20s next to their name, but their roster is in the top three of spending? It all of a sudden, like 6 games in, it's all of a sudden this like boiling pot. It's just I'm so fascinated to see how this works out.
Absolutely. The corresponding move for Old Miss was hiring Pete Golding, their defensive coordinator. And again, I think that was just them trying to keep as many people in house as possible, with Lane Kiffin trying to poach everyone as possible. Fine hiring. Don't really have a whole lot of thoughts. But the other big SEC hiring was something that you had already mentioned, with Florida hiring Jon Sumrall. And I know you have some I don't want to say crazy thoughts because I'm right there with you, but you definitely have thoughts on this hiring.
Yeah, I think this is Florida again doing it the right way to me, man. I think again you could argue, well, they're plucking a G5 coach from Louisiana. Like, what could go wrong? Summerall's not Napier. I'll just say that now.
No.
There is a winning pedigree to Summerall. He has made the the conference championship in the 4 years he has been a head coach. Now his fourth year with Tulane. He was a monster recruiter at Kentucky. You think of what he coached there, coaching linebackers, I believe. You think about those front sevens with that Kentucky team, with the those early teen Stoops years and into the like right before he left for Troy. Like, they recruited a lot of NFL players along that defensive line, and even those backers, thinking about like Jamin Davis. So, like, this is a this is a guy who has seen this, who proved he can recruit this conference, And now he's going to a place with uber more funds than anything Kentucky's ever going to show because of their importance to basketball. I know Florida just won a national championship in basketball, but it's a football state, and
Yes.
there is a real changing of the guard because of like just Norvell does not recruit. Cristobal is a good recruiter, and he's kind of dominated Florida the last few. And Billy was still able to recruit Florida. He just never could get the seasons right, and never could get it all, right in one year. Um, I'm really eager. He brought in Mike White from from Kentucky, who he knows in the past. He's been the defensive coordinator with Kentucky for the last like 7-ish years. There's rumors that my guy Buster Faulkner, the OC for Georgia Tech, is in play for this OC job. If he knocks the OC job like for a home run, I could get very scary with my Florida expectations because this is a team that's gonna have funds. This is a coach I believe in, and now he's assembling a staff that I believe in. Just get the player evals right, brother, and I'll get irrational quick.
Yeah, no, I think this has it will most likely be like the high. We look back on it 5, 10 years from now, and this will be that hiring from the cycle where we're like, yes, again, you did it the right way. Um, in the short term, I'm really interested to see if this was enough for them to keep a DJ Lagway in the building. There's running backs there that we like, and I truly do think it's enough to keep that talent that they already have in the program in the building. As you said, it's about what else now can we bring in to really build this program back up? Because right now this is the worst it's going to get for Florida, I think. Um, but moving on to just
The other
other
thing,
coach.
one
Yeah.
one last thing, is his contract is 6 years, $44 million. So say this is not going right by year three, similar to Napier. It's not another one where it's going to be like a Norvell situation where you're like scrambling for the funds again to like
Yeah.
keep paying buyouts. Like this was something like they are again like going the G5 route has its perks. It has its downsides of like this guy could just not have it, but it has its perks of the buyout is just never going to be immense unless you make it immense with like a crazy extension because you believed in a 13-0 season.